I'm Rue Mapp, the founder and CEO of Outdoor Afro, where Black people and nature meet. But the journey to Outdoor Afro actually started with my family. This is my family in Lake County, California, and my dad's in the middle. And we had this ranch up there that was our refuge from our urban Oakland landscape. And it was a place where we had cows, we had pigs, and I was able to ride my bike on country roads, and we had this beautiful garden, and I had a creek nearby where I could go and explore and watch the life cycle of a tadpole to a frog. It was truly my laboratory. But the thing about that place that was so special were the connections that we made between our family and larger community. So it was a place of not only connecting in with nature, but it was a place to connect with other people, especially our family. So we had lots of celebrations in that space, and this is actually my dad's retirement party. And it was a place where we could, really recharge and really connect with one another. And so I learned at an early age that it was more than nature, but it was also about community and hospitality in nature. I have to make an admission. Also, I didn't grow up with the legacies of John Muir or Rachel Carson. I didn't even know about the Wilderness Act. But I had George Washington Carver, who took conservation and environmental education to new intellectual heights. I also had Harriet Tubman, who I view very much as a wilderness leader. I mean, how else did she lead hundreds to freedom in the cover of night, in the dark? She absolutely did not have a GPS. So those are my conservation heroes, along with my father, who came to California from a Jim Crow South in search of the warmth of other suns. And he brought with him his passion for the outdoors and nature that he passed on to me and is a grounding force in the work that I'm privileged to do today. And I went on and expanded my experiences in the outdoors. I very much enjoyed my local parks. I was a Girl Scout, and I had my first job doing restoration, which is basically cleanup, in my Lake Merritt area in Oakland, California. But I had my first true wilderness experience in the Sequoia Kings area as an outward bound student. And this is me right in the middle. And even though I had had all of this outdoor experience and all these connection points to nature, this was my first time really connecting with the capital W wilderness. And it was an experience that was coming at the right time in my life. I was 20 years old, at the precipice of adulthood. And I was searching for something. I wasn't quite sure what that was, but I felt like there was some answer out there for me. So I signed up for the mountaineering course, and I had a long list of things that I had to bring. And given that I didn't really understand the importance of gear and equipment to make your experience easier, I cut some corners. Some of y'all have heard the story. But for instance, I wondered, if I have a flashlight, why do I need a headlamp? Well, you actually need it to climb at night, and that's what we did. And I was so terrified of that experience on the side of that mountain where it was dark, and I couldn't see below me anymore. I couldn't see above me anymore. And I panicked, and I didn't think I could go on. But my instructor leaned over. He said, "Rue, trust your feet." And when he said that, something resonated, and I was able to scramble to the top. Learning to trust my feet, that was the lesson that I needed to learn at that time. And I tell you, I am still trusting my feet. And I realized at that point the way that nature was a teacher, ready to teach you anything you were ready to learn. And that was what I needed to learn. Fast forward 20 years later, mom of 3, I returned to the wilderness, but a different wilderness, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Just last year, I had the privilege to go with the Sierra Club, and here we are just at the base of the Brooks Range, and we were just getting ready to set up our camp, and we were visited. Yes, that's a grizzly. And there were no physical barriers between our group and that beautiful creature. My knees were shaking, I'm backing up, and we're saying, go away, bear, you know, the way that we like to reason with bears. And the bear, you know, stared at us for a while. This was not a Yosemite bear, meaning this bear had probably not seen many humans. But it looked at us curiously for a while and then took a whiff of northern air and disappeared. And in that moment, I realized that this was not about the bear, this was not our fear of it, but this realization of our existence in its wild. This was not our wild, this was the bear's, and we were definitely not at the top of the food chain. But it also made me aware of the strength and resiliency of that wild, that wild had just amazing resiliency and didn't really care about its human passengers, whether or not we were comfortable, whether or not we were even there. And it was actually good to let go of the sense of control that we sometimes feel that we have. And I know I am better for it. But in the weeks following this experience, I thought about, well, how does that wild, that wilderness relate to what's happening in places like East Oakland, where this is how people are connecting to nature, and quite frankly, are more concerned about security of food and good wages and public safety. As you all know, our country has been experiencing so much tension around race and equity, and people have taken to the streets. And in Oakland, it was no different. In fact, it was a hub of a lot of activity in the streets after Ferguson. And, you know, it was a reminder that we've got a lot of healing to do in this country. I don't know if you all are aware, but we just celebrated both the Wilderness Act and the Civil Rights Act. Both happened in the same year, in 1964, 50 years ago. And I wondered to myself, were those folks talking to each other? Did they share a public platform? And I don't think so, because had they, maybe we'd have a very different looking conservation movement. But the good news is that we have a chance to make those connections today. So back to what's happening now. This was the scene in Oakland, as in many places around the country. Lots of tension, lots of unrest. And my office is in downtown Oakland, and I heard the helicopters over. And I'm wondering to myself, what is it that I can do? I have a young family. I didn't feel like I could take to the streets, but I felt like I had to do something. And the answer came, Rue, you do nature. That's my lane. So I got on the phone the next day and put out a call to action with my partners, with all of our Outdoor Afro leadership around the country, and said, let's get outside and have healing hikes. And in Oakland, we went to the Oakland Hills, where there are second growth redwoods. And we had a yoga teacher join us, and we did some exercises, and we went down into that redwood bowl. And we released how we felt. We didn't all share the same perspectives, we didn't all have the same ideas, but we needed a safe place, a place that was safe from police and riot gear, a place where we really felt that our opinions could be held. And it was a beautiful moment where I realized that we were doing what African Americans have always known that we can do, and that is to lay down our burdens down by the riverside. And we came out of that redwood bowl with resolve about the things that we would do in our families, in our workplaces, in our communities, and shared those commitments with one another. And it was definitely the moment I realized that nature is not only a healer, not only a teacher, but it's a healer. And nowadays, our country needs more of that, and Outdoor Afro is here. And I'm proud to share the partners who have taken the healing hikes and have continued the healing hikes as we have more and more reasons every day to release what ails us in the womb of nature. So Outdoor Afro has evolved into a national leadership program. And part of what we do is help to change the narrative. We have a chance to share a new story about who's connecting with nature and disrupt the assumption that African Americans don't have a relationship with nature. Disrupt that it's only about the kids, but recognizing that it's their parents, it's their grandparents too. And I'm going to share with you some of the ways that we're telling this new story and that we're welcoming everyone, no matter what your hue is. I always tell people you don't have to have an afro to be an Outdoor Afro. We're connecting people to local nature, knowing that people have to start someplace. I love this image. This is in Chicago, our Chicago network. Kayaks in the front, skyscrapers in the back. It's about taking the time to learn about the ecological, but also the history of people in places, and the role of interpretation being so important. We have found that there is so much African American history in our national parks, our state parks, and local parks, and teasing that out is a way to help people feel connected to place in new ways. We also do Outdoor Afro after work hikes, because the biggest barrier that we found for people wasn't what you thought. It was really time. And so having people be able to connect into nature around their work schedules has been really effective. And we also support people taking healthy risks together. We had a group of 40 people who'd never camped, never whitewater raft before, but they were willing to trust us with that experience. It's also about helping to reconnect people to those traditions, those experiences that you may have done as a child, but you want to reconnect with. And if you recall, in the beginning of our conversation, that picture of my parents and our family, this is what an Outdoor Afro event looks like. And these are people who didn't even know each other. But because they summited that mountain, or they achieved that thing in the outdoors, they found community with each other. And that's what that looks like. And those are those smiles that you see, that feeling of connection that we all need. And environmental education, taking time to understand our connectedness and the role of humans in the natural world. So this guy, he's holding a banana slug, in case you can't see that. He's probably like 35 years old. But look at that face. He's 4 years old again, okay? And it's just a reminder that adults need nature and wonder in our lives as well. And this is the look of a mom and her child from Richmond who are experiencing snow for the first time. And then conservation practice. I feel that we often rush people to conservation, but often, we all know, it starts with that relationship, and that's what we're trying to do. Retell the stories of our past, but also cultivate a relationship so that people do land in this place of wanting to conserve. And we love this picture. This is in Sibley, our volcano in Oakland. And it's a wonderful, wonderful hike, but we've hiked there a lot. And so when we ask people to come out and do restoration work and to take care of this place, it comes at the end of a long time connection. And then it's not always about the physical activities, but it's sometimes about sitting together and doing what humans have done through time eternal, and that is to get around a fire and tell our stories and connect with one another. So yes, we do have a chance to tell a new narrative. And, it's hard to know when our work will be done. There won't be a parade down Main Street. It will be in that quiet moment when we look up and we see people engage with their environment in proportion to their population and their opportunity and it's no big deal. It's the moment when we find environmental education made available to all children, no matter where they live or where they're from. It's the moment when we know the connection between the porcupine caribou, urban food deserts, and a relentless California drought, and work together to do something about it. We may not have made that connection 50 years ago to connect the need to protect vulnerable places and vulnerable people, but we have that opportunity today. So I'm going to ask you to be bold and reach out to communities that you may not know, that you may not have worked with before, and link arms with them in the same way that we did over 50 years ago on that famous march in Washington. But this time, to protect and restore and repair relationships between people and our precious wild all around for everyone. Thank you.